Rabbi Professor Jonathan Maganat, who taught some of us and still teaches Bible at Leobeck College, always instructed his students to look at the context of any verses in the Torah. Always examine what comes before and what comes after the verses you're studying, he would say. The beginning of this morning's parashah comes immediately after verses that are familiar to us. We sang them earlier on in the service. Lema'an tizkuru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai. Be mindful of all my commandments and do them. So shall you be consecrated to your God. These verses come from the third paragraph of the Shema, of which we sing just the last two verses, and there it is on the slide, the whole passage that is part of the full version from chapter 15, verses 37 onwards. And that passage comes at the very end of last week's parashah, Numbers 15, Parashat Shalach Lecha. And it includes, as you'll see, an instruction from God to Moses to tell the Israelites to make fringes on the corners of their garments and to attach a patil techelet, a blue cord, to the fringe at each corner. The Torah distinguishes these tassels from other fringed garments in that they were specifically to remind the children of Israel to fulfill the commandments of the Torah. In addition, the tassels of the Israelites had a colored cord of techelet, sky blue color, violet blue color, that would stand out in contrast to the other tassel fibers. Today, of course, the tzitzit are the fringes on the corners of our talitot. In temple times, the techelet was an identical blue cord to one that hung from the high priest's headdress. Exactly the same word is used in Exodus 28, techelet. But tzitzit on the garments of the Israelites and this techelet on the high priest's headdress in ancient times identified them as being holy to God and may have connected them to the priests. It is immediately after these verses about the fringes and the violet blue cord that Korach's challenge is made against Moses. Undoubtedly, it's significant that Korach is from priestly stock, from the same tribe as Aaron, the high priest, his cousin, from the clan of the Levites, and that his claim against Moses and Aaron is about the holiness of the whole community. Korach features in such a significant way in the Torah and in rabbinic tradition that we might be forgiven for assuming that his voice is loud, pervasive, forceful, and high-handed. And perhaps it is, but he speaks only 14 words in this parashah. Rav lachem ki chol ha'eda kulam kadoshim. You have gone too far, for all the community are holy, all of them, and the Eternal One is in their midst. Why then do you raise yourselves above the Eternal One's congregation? Bit more than 14 in the English. And it isn't even clear whether this is Korach's voice or Datan and Aviram's voices, who form another mutiny within the Israelite camp, or the 250 chieftains, representatives of the Israelite community. Looking through the whole of the parashah, what becomes clear is that Korach's actions are as powerful as his words, if not more powerful. He assembles with him the top brass of the community, not just one or two, but 250 chieftains of the tribes. He He may or may not be behind Datan and Aviram's refusal later on to appear before Moses, and their ironic accusation that Moses has brought them from a land flowing with milk and honey, Egypt, to have them die in the wilderness. Korach is certainly behind the belligerent assembly of the whole community at the entrance of the tent of meeting, a community that's risen against their leaders. It would be easy to demonize Korach's words and behavior. It is easy. The sons of darkness pitted against the sons of light. But the rabbinic imagination doesn't see the contest in such binary terms. The controversy is more complicated, argue the sages. Indeed, in one midrash, the rabbis say Korach was a chacham, a wise man, somewhat inexplicably. Why? Why would he be described as a wise man? Because of his priestly pedigree and the role he and his colleagues had as bearers of the ark through the wilderness years? But maybe also because, as the Midrash is going to show us, Korach began to engage Moses in halachic discussion, a conversation about the very commandments that are read, that are given to Moses, not just about the Patil Techelet, but others. At the very moment that Moses tells the Israelites to make fringed garments for themselves, Korach steps forward to interrupt. If, he says, a talit is made, all of it, of violet blue, does then it have to have fringes? Moses responds, yes, it's not exempt from having fringes. And he asks him a whole series of other questions. And just as Moses responds, and just as Moses is repeating the commandment to attach a blue cord to the fringe at each corner of one's garments, Korach has ordered his 250 followers to wrap themselves in garments that are entirely made of violet blue wool. In other words, he comes forward, this sea of violet blue, of sky blue, to flaunt these garments in front of Moses, ridiculing Moses, humiliating Moses. Now he says, tell me that these garments woven completely in blue require on top of them a blue thread. Where the biblical text eventually shows the dramatic defeat of Korach, Datan, and Aviram, the ground the ground opening up to swallow them with their followers and a fire consuming them, the Midrash reveals Moses taking a different kind of route with the rebels. He tries to engage with the leaders and to make peace with Korach. Yet even if he cannot persuade him to abandon his rebellion, he hopes for dialogue. So the Midrash is suggesting a different reading of the biblical text. Korach's assertion that all the people are holy and that God is in their midst is unanswerable. Its truth silences Moses, and he falls on his face in humility. What is Moses to do with this underlying truth? Surely all the people are holy, and God is in their midst. Moses' desire in the Midrash not to persist in a dispute with the rebels prompt an important Talmudic teaching. From here, says Reish Lakish, we learn that one should not persist in a dispute, for Moses sought them out in order to come to terms with them. The Hebrew says he courted them in order to come to terms with them through peaceful dialogue. We cannot forget the essential truth of Korach's argument. He's echoing the Leviticus teaching, Kadoshim Tehiyu, Ki Kadosh Ani Adonai Elohechem, you shall be holy, For I, the Eternal One, your God, am holy. And the verse in Exodus 25 in which God commands the Israelites to make a sanctuary that I may dwell among them, a key statement which underlines Korach's belief that God is in the midst of the whole congregation of Israel. And we have God's chosen leadership of Moses and the direct access that exists between the two of them. Two truths that are essential here. Remembering that for Moses, speech is hampered by a stammer from his earliest years, this earnest desire to avoid a machloket, a controversy, and to break a rigid, unchangeable situation, avoids the harsh and punitive route of the Torah's narrative. In the Midrash, we glimpse the possibility of an open conversation and dialogue between all the parties involved in the dispute. It is the Midrash that offers a more compassionate, more rational way of dealing with machloket, that abstracts from intractability a greater flexibility and deeper communication between the different parties. Both sides could have borne responsibility to avoid a contest for righteousness and reach a different outcome, acknowledging differences and finding a way to live with what the late Pope Francis called reconciled diversity, where we can sit with our differences openly, acknowledge that unity is an ideal that exists only in God, and that human beings are not coins that are stamped with a single seal, but created in the image of God, are each unique, women and men, individuals whose differences cannot be silenced in the cause of integrity, truth, and peace.